Hello.
Hello.
Welcome to our Christmas party. We were going to have Santa hats, but Sergey nixed that idea, and the red will clash with this red. So I decided no Santa hat. So I have a glass of water. It looks like coffee, doesn't it? Or hot chocolate. So if you desire to have some sort of hot tea or cookies or something, it's bring your own refreshments.
Or also bring your own music because, well, we have some technical limitations. So sorry about
We're
that.
worried that if we turn on music, it will
No,
affect the
it will
quality of speaking.
it will. And we don't know how to turn on the music in Zoom. So we are still learning how to use Zoom. So,
No, if we just turn on a thing, it should
uh,
work. I've done it in the past, but
but then it didn't work. So it's always unpredictable. So, but if you want to turn on your own music on your own device, you feel it's
or your
helpful
background music.
to
Just please
create
have
your
your
background music,
yeah,
maybe
just
some of
keep
our sound elixirs, and then, well, you can do that.
so just
Up to you.
please keep
Mhm.
your microphones
Mhm.
off for that.
Mhm.
Um oh, it's Marika's birthday. Oh, 78-year-old girl.
Oh,
Happy birthday.
happy birthday.
Alrighty. So I want to start by sort of tuning in. Almin always has these beautiful, beautiful poetic prayers, and I'm not nearly as poetic. And Ella also has these wonderful, well, she uses the same one that I read every time. Um, and when I went to church, I was always very like, we should start with a prayer. And then, like, okay, we don't pray here. Okay, well, great. So we just sort of started.
Except for
And
ourselves, to ourselves. Yeah.
I sort of need to
Mhm.
tune in, ground, and it's very helpful to just set an intent of why we're here, why we're gathered, and um, if you have goals, you can reach them, and if you don't set goals, then you won't reach them. So we can set an intent of what we're here for, and then we can get answers. And like, if we're here to have a good time, okay, well then we can uh, have a good time. Someone else has joined us. Welcome.
Ah, Tsitsin, so good to see you.
Yeah,
Welcome,
hello.
welcome, welcome.
Yes,
So
it's good to
we're
see
about to
you.
start,
Yes.
and we are going to have a message from Jill. She received a prophetic word for all of us and for the upcoming new year. And as we know, prophecy is really not prediction. Some people, well, confuse it when we think prophecy, we think prediction. But this word actually comes from Greek. It's propheteia, which means projection, really. So we prophesy this upcoming new year into existence by creating it. We are not predict because there's no one else except us to create things for us instead of us. So whatever we create, we will have. And we are going to have a very special runic ceremony tonight, which will help us create our life in the upcoming new year and on and on and on. Uh, so, where is Jill? Okay, so
You told all about this prophecy, and I
yeah,
realized I lost my
and
voice.
actually, the word propheteia comes from Greek phos, which is light. Light is information. So, and we have an infinite potential, a quantum field, infinite field of all potentials. And we turn the light on our phos with our conscious thinking, our conscious intents, our conscious desires. Yes, it's allowed to have desires because there's a lot of uh, arguing about it in the world of spiritual seekers. Should or shouldn't we have desires? We cannot deny ourselves. We have desires. So we want our life to have to be a certain way. And this is nothing to be ashamed of. If we have desires, means we have them. We need to be honest with ourselves. And if we have desires, what we can do with them, we can intend that they will come to pass. And this is the prophecy. So it's not like some people go to psychics and things like that, looking for some answers, looking for some predictions. So if we talk about predictions, we mean that there's something else or someone else who creates uh, our life, life on Earth, a life in the cosmos, and we just need to, well, tune in and see and predict and foresee what those other beings created for us. But this is not how prophecy works. Prophecy is projection. Whatever we project, whatever we intend, whatever we think about consciously, knowing with full knowledge that our thoughts will become things. This is actually foundational teaching of our beloved Sir Almin, which she wrote in her first book. Actually, this is one of my favorite books, A Life of Miracles. A thought coupled with a feeling creates our reality. So looks like Jill is ready.
So first I want to just invite us. I don't know whether you've spent all day in meditation or whether you've been busy running around buying presents and trying to get ready for things and are feeling a little bit chaotic, but I just want to give us a time to sort of calm down, breathe, and just focus on why we're here, not just for this Zoom meeting, but why we're here on Earth. And just close our eyes and we create the intent that for today's meeting, we will attain a deeper level of understanding of our own being and realizing that the cosmos is a reflection of our own being. So a deeper reflection or a deeper understanding of our own being leads to a deeper understanding of the structure of the cosmos, how and why things happen, and how to affect them to change things that we need to change. We also intend for motivation. Sometimes we feel like we know what we should be doing, but we don't want to do it. That we would have clarity about that, clarity about what we really should be doing. And if we have resistance, what's causing that resistance and how to remove it. And just some deep breaths of self-acceptance. And if there's anyone in our environment or that we read about in the news that's in our space in any way, we just breathe out the tension and we breathe in the self-acceptance, realizing they are an aspect of us. So we were planning on talking about changes that are going on in the world. And we got a question about why can we please talk about changes in the world and how to adjust to that and make it more smooth. And so it was a confirmation that we are we planned correctly. Um, so yeah, one of the main places that I get my own insights is things like social media, news, and TV. So I don't watch TV very often. It's not like every night I turn on some show. So it ends up being a sort of rare thing. And so my sister's visiting, she had a cold and didn't feel like doing anything. And so it ended up that she was sitting in front of the TV, sort of doing nothing. And I get sucked into the TV if it's on, but especially if it's something that doesn't happen very often and I'm curious. So we watched Law and Order, of all things, last night. So sort of like criminal cop plot lines and that kind of thing. Um, and it's basically any, we'll call it human plot line, is fascinating to watch and to analyze what's going on and who are the people involved, who are the personalities involved. There's a lot of things. If it's a movie or a TV show, you look at it and you go, wait, that couldn't really happen. You remind yourself, well, it's a movie, so they can just sort of inconvenient things and be like, well, it happened this way, and you just ignore things that are awkward. But if you watch movies not with the intent of having, so if you're passively um, watching TV or whatever for entertainment, meaning that you want to sit there and do nothing and have the TV do all the work, which means it's going to completely hypnotize you and take over your subconscious, your inner world, and make the movie your inner world. So it's not very healthy. But you don't necessarily have to seclude yourself from everything and like never watch TV. You just want to be very conscious and you want to use it for a spiritual exercise rather than for just relaxing and letting somebody else hypnotize you and take over your inner world. So it was interesting watching, the cops interview all of the uh, suspects, and then every now and then the suspect would turn out to be not guilty, and they'd have to let them go. And sort of watching this process and trying to figure out, is this actually a good method of interviewing people to try and figure out if they're telling the truth or not? Or is this really just going to throw mud in the waters if you like have someone that you think is guilty and you convict them and you try and get them all emotional? um, does that actually make them confess or act in a certain way that you can tell that they're guilty? Or is that just going to rile them up, whoever they are, and then you won't be able to tell what their real intents are? Um, and just sort of analyzing all of these things about human psychology, watching, things on the screen. And then always asking why. So is that really the way things are? And then why is it the way it is? And then you can get the most important thing, and as Almin has always said, the most important thing for getting answers is having a question. So you ask the right question, and you can get the right answer, but you can't get the answer if you don't know the right questions to ask. So that's one of the things that, like, an occasional watching of TV or movies helps to formulate questions. So last night I had a TV watching question session. And fortunately, that helped me to get some insights that I wanted to share today. So right now is the solstice. Friday night tonight is the longest night of the year. And Saturday, for those of you for whom it's Saturday already, is the shortest day of the year.
Northern Hemisphere. We have Australians here.
Oh, you guys have the opposite. You guys have the other solstice. Okay, so I lied. The solstice is happening right now.
It's actually the longest day.
Yeah. Right. Okay, so that makes total sense. Anyway,
But solstice anyway.
yes, so the solstice is a turning point. It's when, the
Yeah.
sun, whichever hemisphere you're on, it's gotten to either the longest day of the year or the longest night of the year, and then it's going to start going back the other way. And so solstice being a turning point is a great time for internal change, where you make a change that may not be very um obvious to start. Like, the days start getting shorter or getting longer, and you don't really notice it from day to day, but you notice it from like month to month or from week to week even. And so it's a good time to make a subtle adjustment in your life that sets you on a new path, and you're sort of moving with, the subtle changes in life happen parallel to your subtle changes in your own inner world. And our Australians share, yes, 36 degrees Celsius of heat today. And that's pretty hot. That's
And
like
summer.
an 80s. Yeah. So we don't have snow on the ground, but it is winter and chilly here. We're in Colorado. And I also like to read the newspapers and see what's going on and what kinds of things people are going to be talking about, what kinds of issues, let's say, need to be prayed for in, church language. Um, you're sort of basically with all of this, you're observing your inner world. What is mirrored back to you? So you're watching sort of like a movie. You watch your own life like a movie. You read the newspapers like a movie, and you just sort of sit back and analyze what's going on here and what is this showing me. And so every time I read the newspaper, there's like, oh, Trump is having this huge, huge change. He's like nominated this person for this office that nobody thinks is fit for that office. And everybody is up in arms, and like some pretty major upheaval, and like on a daily basis. And it's not just in America, it's also worldwide. And also, America affects so many different countries with international relations. And then, if the direction that America is on changes, that's going to change the international relations and how other countries act and interact with America and with each other. And like the whole structure of the world currently is undergoing a massive change. And so our goal is to help that massive change be as graceful as possible rather than being a cataclysmic disaster. So if you can imagine, let's say you want to have chickens, and so you buy some eggs and you incubate them, you keep them warm, and you sort of like watch them develop, not like you can see much, but you keep them warm and you trust that someday you're going to get a chick out of them. And imagine the chick sitting in the egg, and all of a sudden he feels that the eggshell is getting thinner, and it's going to start cracking pretty soon, and he's terrified. And all of the resources have run out. He doesn't have any egg white left to eat. And all of a sudden, the poor chick is, oh, my world is falling apart. Everything is going to come to an end. This is a disaster. We need to pray for more resources. We need to pray for more glue to hold our shell together. And well, okay, I'm just going to sit here and try and not move and not breathe so that I don't use calories and don't need more food, and so that I don't break my delicate shell that is like the only thing I know, and my world is falling apart. So there's a lot of people in the world that seem to have that attitude. And we all know what really needs to happen is the chick needs to move on from that shell and walk into a new world. And it'll be completely different, because instead of being squished inside a squishy little shell, he's going to have the whole world he can roam around, and he's got freedom. He can run around, he can build his muscles and eat food that he pecks instead of like absorbing it through however they eat it in the egg. And if you can imagine, like people who have been in prison for like 30 years or for like their whole life, and they suddenly get released from prison, they don't know how to live. And they're totally overwhelmed, and they do everything they can to get back in jail because there's structure, and that's the only world that they've known. And so it seems like we have a lot of positive change happening, and this is a good thing, but there are a lot of people in the world right now that are not able to deal with that kind of change. And that can create a disaster, cataclysm for more people. I mean, we live in different realities, so something for them can be a disaster. For us, it can be great. But if there's enough people that perceive change as a disaster, then it can sort of tip the scales and make it more of a sort of widespread cataclysm. And so one of the primary things that we want to do is make change graceful, including other people, including other people that would make it a disaster just by their perspective. Um, and I know that on the other portal, they did a peace ceremony recently for ending the war. There was a power sigil for ending the war in Russia and Ukraine, and a power sigil for ending the war in Israel. And war has been the status quo for centuries, for basically as long as humanity has existed. And so, while it seems like a good thing to desire peace, peace is actually a massive change, which will be disorienting for many people. We frequently talk about fear of our vastness. If you have just a nice, concrete, structured, small space you're focusing on, your mind can handle that, and that feels comfortable and doable. As soon as you suddenly start encountering your vastness, which is chaotic, it's totally overwhelming. Everything happens all at once. Everything that could possibly ever happen happens all at the same time. We have timelessness, which means things aren't separated out into a timeline. It's just boom, everything together. There's no geographic separation. Everything is happening at the same place. And then instead of sorting things out into what could potentially happen, what did happen, all potential is just here and now. And it sounds great, but it's totally overwhelming. And the normal human response to having an encounter of your vastness is total overwhelm and fear. So you basically lose your mind. You can't deal with it, and you're just. So it's not a positive thing. And so basically, the reason all religions exist is to help take this massively overwhelming, chaotic thing that you can't deal with and break it down into structure that you can relate to. Um, so our goal is to create a connection with our own vastness, to not be overwhelmed by that, to not run away from it, but to have a structured way of accessing our vastness and yet be able to live a structured life, not limited, but structured. And all structure creates a certain amount of limitation. But like you wear clothes and then you grow up, and as you grow, the clothes that become too small for you, you give away and you get clothes that fit you. And so the same thing happens with the structure of our lives. We grow, and then the structure needs to be flexible and move with us. And if the structure itself doesn't change, and then we need to get rid of the old rules that are now binding and move into a new paradigm. And then we keep doing that because we keep growing. So it's sort of like getting new clothes when the old ones wear out or become too small. And that's normal. It's not that we shouldn't have had those clothes to begin with. It's just that they have worn out and we need to get new ones. So there's this constant change happening. But if we get behind in changing, if we've been holding on to our shell too long, then that change comes sort of more all at once. So we have a period now where there's a whole bunch of just massive changes happening. And we are the pivot point. If the pivot point comes apart, then everything comes apart. So things can turn. So like we have, things are turning, and if they stay together at, the place that they're joined, then movement can happen, but not everything comes apart and unhinged. And so we all need to stay together in order for this to be graceful change. And the most important thing, the most important element of that is our emotional response. So if we become unhinged, then the whole world becomes unhinged. If we're able to control our emotions and not feel overwhelmed by change that's happening, but stay grounded and present and clear of feeling ourselves and identifying our emotions and feelings and dealing with them rather than repressing them or trying to escape, that will create a stability that the rest of the world can then rely on. So, emotional response is like the Christian teaching of turning the other cheek. If we turn our other cheek in society, that's viewed as being weak and like a just letting everybody beat you up. Oh, I can't defend myself. I'm supposed to be this like weak little thing that, oh, everybody beats me up and I just can't do anything about it. I get beaten. Um, like I'm a rag for, wiping your shoes on. Yeah. There's nothing I can do about that. Just. But the real teaching, so imagine, this is how wars start. So you're having a conversation with somebody and they get annoyed at something and they slap you. The human response to physical pain is anger. So if that's why people start swearing when they stub their toe because, it's an anger response. It's an instant. So someone comes along and slaps you, and sometimes it's just an uncontrolled emotional moment. Sometimes the person is actually trying to provoke you so that they can get you involved in a real serious conflict and maybe inflict some serious harm. And even if they're not trying to provoke you, sometimes, they have uncontrolled emotions. They expect you to respond and you don't. And so then they start trying to provoke you to see what it takes to actually provoke you. So they slap you, and you are so much in control of your emotions that instead of just getting out of control and attacking them, and they attack you back, and then you attack them back, and all of a sudden everyone's dead, you just don't respond. Maybe you turn the other cheek, as in, like, I know that if you slap me a second time, I will still not respond because I control my emotions that well.
May I interject here? The left cheek and the right cheek is actually the left brain hemisphere and right brain hemisphere. So it means if they slap you on the left cheek, you turn the other cheek, which means that you engage or activate the right brain hemisphere, which means that you find creative solution to the conflict. I never thought about that. Just now, when Jill told us this, now I just a thought came to me. So the left brain hemisphere responds is my English today. I spoke a lot of Russian. Is responsible for logical part of our life. So, and we are talking about expanding our consciousness, expanding our perception, and the right brain hemisphere is responsible for a creative part of our life, which is actually 9/10 of our consciousness, which we are not conscious of because we are conscious only 1/10, only 1/10 of information available at the moment. And well, we always have it available what we need at the moment. But 9/10, what some people call subconscious mind, is seemingly unavailable. Potentially, it's all available. Actually, that's why we are going to do a runic ceremony today, because runes actually help us to extract information, resources from the right cheek, which means right brain hemisphere, or 9/10 of our consciousness, which is in the area of what we call subconscious mind. And, we know much more than we are conscious of. And actually, tonight is a great night, great prophetic night, when we have a possibility to reach into our right cheek or subconscious mind and get out of it all necessary information, what we know, but we are not conscious of. And today, everything that we are not conscious of, we will become conscious of. And we are about to get some creative solutions for our lives, and not only for our lives, but as a proxy. We are a sacred government of the earth, by the way. So, as a proxy, we are going to change the world tonight. So, Jill, please. Sorry for interruption.
So on that topic,
Mhm.
also, how do you, when you're having an emotional response and you need to just snap out of it, how do you get out of that emotional snit or outrage or whatever with cold logic? So if you're having an emotional outrage, you're in your right brain and you're in your feeling and symbol and subconscious world, but you're being ruled by emotions and you need to snap out of that. How do you do that? You switch over to your logic and all of the things. This is not new information. So what is logic? It's numbers. And the other thing that helps you get out of your like adrenaline rush into your quiet mode is breathing. Breathing is your link between the two worlds and the two states of your body. The adrenaline versus the sympathetic versus the, my brain is not functioning right now and the verbal part is sort of collapsing. Anyway, the adrenaline versus the I can never remember whether the sympathetic is the adrenaline one or the opposite. Anyway, so the two functions of your body where you're um, eating and sleeping or fighting and flighting, your breathing helps you going back and forth between those. As in, if you want to suddenly be excited and whatever, you can start hyperventilating and that'll um, give you a lot more adrenaline. And if you need to calm down, they tell you take some deep breaths. So everybody has heard this. You take deep breaths and you count to 10. Why do you count to 10? So that it sounds like a threat to your children? Well, yeah. Sometimes, you hear the 1, 2, and you're like, oh no, mom's going to spank me. But so if that evokes an emotional response to you because of, childhood memories, you can count down from 10, which involves more brain power. You can, instead of counting from 1 to 10, you can count from 11 to 20. But any sort of switching over to numbers, sometimes if you're really into emotions, math won't work for you. So you're like, I can't do the 2 plus 4 thing, but just counting 1, 2, 3, that can sort of start switching you over. Something simple, and then you start realizing, oh, the 1, 2, 3, 4 is going to trigger some childhood fears of getting spanked, and so I should do some other numbers, 11, 12. Your logic starts kicking in more and more, and then you get into the cold logic, which is the other brain hemisphere, and then you're more balanced and you can get out of that. So probably the number one most important thing for being a spiritual master is mastering your emotions. And it's easy to master your emotions when you're not triggered, but then suddenly you have something that triggers you, and how to, in that moment of emotional response, instantly redirect and go back to calm, cold logic. So the advice that they give everyone all the time is take some deep breaths and start counting. Really. Um, and then if we don't have the emotions all stirred up, then we can start having clarity. So if we have our own agendas and we want this and we want that, and we have emotional attachments to everything, then we will not be able to see clearly. We won't be able to get the prophetic messages that we need. We won't be able to see what's actually going on and how to fix it. We'll just be in a muddle, confused about ourselves, confused about other people. So emotions really is the key. Emotions and your agenda, but usually the reason you have agenda is you're emotionally attached to something, and that's why you're trying for that. And if you can control your emotions and realize that you have an emotional attachment, and usually the biggest problem with emotional attachments is we don't realize they're manipulating us. It's that lack of clarity. So you calm yourself down and you find the little areas that are not calm and that are getting in your way, blocking your ability to calm down. And you ask, what is that? Why am I, you sort of feel something pulling there. Why am I triggered here? Why am I having trouble letting go of that? And you do some deep analysis of yourself about how you relate to certain things in your life, what that's based on, whether it's from your past, from I mean, pretty much it's going to be based on something from your past, and how to deal with that in order to change your perspective and transmute that, change it into a new situation, a new perspective, how to look at that differently so that you don't have that emotional attachment pulling you around like a ball and chain. So if we learn to control our emotions, then instead of this emotional triggering just going like an electric current, we're sort of like the grounding force, and it stops here. Like the expression, the buck stops here. Apparently that's from poker. They would like pass along this thing that they called a buck. It was like, instead of a dollar buck, it was like some thing made out of a buck's antler or something like that. And so they would pass the buck, and that would be who was supposed to deal the next round. And if you didn't want to deal the next round, you'd pass it on to the next person. And so it became symbolic for passing responsibility along. I'm not going to take responsibility for that. I'm not going to be the dealer. And so you pass the buck and you're like, somebody else can do it. And everybody else keeps going. I'm not going to take responsibility for that. And so we, as the sacred government of the world, we have to take responsibility. The buck stops here. And so we see something, some sort of wave taking over the earth, and we, in our lack of response to it, we don't become part of this. We don't feed this with our emotional energy. The buck stops here. And the cataclysmic tendencies stop here. So, talking about conflict and war, that always comes from a sense of separation when we don't realize that the world is us. And if we start feeling attacked, so I think we all feel attacked. That's part of who we are. And that's also, I mean, like you look at the world and war is going on all over the place. And so obviously people are feeling attacked. So it makes sense that we would be feeling that as well, because the wars outside are reflecting our own sense of self-sabotage, our own attacking ourselves, our feeling attacked. Why are we feeling attacked? Because we're creating that. So if we stop attacking ourselves, presumably the wars should stop. And the wars that are going on now are pretty much all a self-defense. So you see somebody else, they come and attack you, and you have no choice, but you have to attack them in order to not die yourself. And so that sense of constantly being attacked. And on the other portal, I also recently looked at posts to see what was going on. And there were posts about, oh, I'm so attacked, and like, oh, ooh. And I'm like, well, I mean, I don't do the whole drama queen.
So what?
Oh, everybody,
So we are
feel
attacked.
sorry for
So
me.
what?
It's like, well, that's part of life.
It's part of life. Every day, every second life.
And
So
then if you realize
that's
that
why we are always on alert.
that's just a reflection of your own inner world, then it suddenly becomes more embarrassing to complain about your problems. You start going, oh, this is so terrible. Oh, this is so terrible. And you're like, and how to correct it is by correcting things within, because it's just reflecting what, yeah, never mind. Okay, forget about all those problems I told you about.
And if it will not kill you, it will make you stronger.
Yes. Although I read a very interesting, detailed explanation of that, because there are a lot of times when somebody goes through a traumatic experience and it seems like it breaks them. And you're like, but it doesn't always make you stronger. And someone had a very, very apropos explanation. So it was like, conversation between father and son. And the father says, oh, well, it didn't kill you, it made you stronger. And the son's like, yeah, I beg to differ. Sometimes things, break you. And the father said, okay, so yeah, sat and thought about this for a bit. And so you remember that bookshelf that we had in your room, and it broke. And so then we glued it. And since the glue is so strong, the bookshelf is stronger now after being glued than it was before it was broken. But if we hadn't glued it, it would have stayed broken. And if we tried to put books on it while the glue was drying and it hadn't set yet, it would have broken again. So what you mean is you haven't healed from it yet. But once you heal from it, then you will be stronger. Sometimes there's a time frame that's necessary there, and some work that's necessary to go into that healing process. But it has the potential to make you stronger once you finally activate that and use it. So, yes, in my life, I'm feeling attacked by my own computers. We bought some new technology recently. We have a couple. We've had them for several months now. They're still new for me. I still have not figured out how to get everything to work correctly on them, and they all team up against me. Like, oh, you can't do this. Ha 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 ha. Oh, you can only do this on your old computer that's so slow. Ha 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 ha. Anyway, so I find that humorous, even if it's really annoying. Um, And in addition to our emotional control, the other thing that's very important for us, we see conflict outside of us. We realize we have inner conflict. And our goal in any sort of difficult moment, whether we're feeling attacked, whether we're like, why is it like this? And we're seeking clarity, our goal in life is to learn from what we go through, and it is to get better, to learn and improve, not to dig in our heels and do this whole I'm holier than everybody else. I'm good. There's all this conflict out there. You people are so stupid and so low and so base. And I don't know why I have to live in your world because I'm so holy. I'm sure we've all felt that. But if we have that attitude of like, oh, these stupid humanity and I'm this amazing holy being, that doesn't help us solve the problem. It might feel good for like a little bit, but the idea is not to dig in our heels and tell everybody how right we are. The idea is to ask ourselves, what could I do even better? It doesn't have to be a self-criticism of, oh, I'm so stupid and oh, this is law, unless we've gone into all of that judgment of like, oh, this is so stupid and la, and then we have to realize that it's us. And now we're feeling kind of silly because we just criticized ourselves and called ourselves stupid. And we're like, oh, but everything is perfect the way it is, but that doesn't mean it has to stay that way. So everything is the way it is right now. But what can we do to make it better? This is what I love about Ella's webinar. She's always like, what can we do to make it even better? So we're assuming it was good to start with. Some of us are like, it was terrible. What do you mean even better? What can I do to make it slightly better? Anyway, um, So on the topic, going back to my experience watching Law and Order and people getting grilled because they were suspect of murder and it turned not not guilty. Um, how do you actually get the truth out of life or people or whatever? If you have clarity of vision instead of a whole bunch of messy emotions and agendas that you haven't figured out and that you're not very conscious of, if you have clarity of vision, you know what you want and you can feel that unity. Your emotions are not out of control and muddying the waters. Your thoughts are not creating out of control emotions. And you have inner clarity. I like to compare it to a lake where there's no wind creating waves and there's no dirt that's washed in from like recent rains or whatever. And so you have nice clear water and you can see all the way to the bottom. Your spirit, your true self, your deepest level is the bottom of the lake. And if you're calm and clear, you can see the bottom of the lake. But if the wind picks up, if the waves are too big and there's dirt all over the place, then you can't see anything. And this is the magical symbol in the Old Testament of the Bible, where in the temple they had this sea. It was sort of like a weird, like, bowl of water. And like they had like gold bowls holding this, like, or bronze. It was bronze, I think. And but anyway, metal. So they had these metal bowls that this like metal dish was on, and it was huge. It was like this big, like baptismal thing. And it's also referred to, I think, in the book of Revelations as the Sea of Glass. And you're like, glass? But if water is still enough, it looks like glass until you touch it or blow on it. And that is in order to get to the throne room of our inner world, we have to get past the sea of glass, as in we have to bring our emotions and our thoughts into that much control, into that much calm. And then we can see clearly. And then we're in the throne room where we can control everything because we see clearly and we know what we need to do. We know what's wrong and we know how to fix it. If we are in that kind of state where we can just see through people, you don't have to like do this, like, what would be the right way to manipulate them into saying the truth. And then if they say the truth, how will I recognize it as the truth? All you have to do is look at the person and they can tell that you can see right through them. So if they're guilty of something, they're just going to start confessing because they know that you can see it anyway, and there's no point in trying to hide from you. And if they're not guilty, then they will be calm and comfortable in your presence because they realize that they are innocent and you can see that they're innocent. And the same thing is true with life, not just with people. You look at something and it instantly reveals its true nature because you're clear. But if you're a mess, if you have all of this muddiness going on, then you can't see clearly. Nothing reveals itself. It's just a chaotic mess until you get that calm, that clearness. So those were all the notes that I had that I wanted to share with you today. We have a comment that I relate to the new computer attacks. Yes, technology, whether or not it's artificial intelligence.
Who doesn't relate?
Okay.
Only those who don't have computer.
Well, there are people who, especially if they don't have human friends and they haven't learned to relate to humans, they think computers are their friends and like, oh, computers don't have these sticky emotions and they won't try and manipulate me. And that's a little scary because if you think that computers are actually
Threats
friends,
not always
they're not.
comfortable. And it's good.
Yes. So, I guess I want to have a little break for questions or discussion, and then we will go into
The runes.
a rune session. So if there's any questions, you can go ahead and turn on your microphone if you feel comfortable doing that, or you can text us in the chat.
Hi there.
Hi,
Hi.
Marla.
I have a question for you about attacks. And I had I had a conversation that I had with another original one just recently about this because it came to my mind like sometimes we're feeling a certain way and we feel like it's happening like outside of us, but is it really, or is it just something that's bringing it's arising in us to make us look at something that we need to solve within ourselves?
So Almin talks a lot about mirrors and how the world around us is a mirror. And sometimes you look in the mirror to see what's on your face. And, you have to remember that left is right and right is left. And, um, make sure that you're actually looking at things. But sometimes mirrors distort things. And so if something is distorted, then you need to, like, so we have it mirrored. Or
Yes.
so if I show you
Our camera
something,
is mirrored.
it's going to be the right way.
So
But
actually very symbolical. Actually, this is what Almin calls a second mirror, and we have this setting already built into our camera.
yeah, although it
So
depends on the computer, not on the Zoom
yeah,
account,
really.
interestingly, because my computer is the
I don't
opposite.
know how it works, but the camera is a mirror, but it is not inverted mirror.
Well, I
Actually.
chose that in the settings.
Very prophetical, very symbolical for our today's gathering.
And so it's
we are
weird
creating
because
new life
I'm on this side and I'm looking
for
at
your.
Sergey as if that's me. So
Yeah,
we're sort of
yeah.
inverted looking at ourselves. We don't see a mirror image.
So we actually what we do together tonight or today in Australia, we correct the inverted image in the mirror. I need to ponder that really. I need to have some time, maybe after our meeting, but it's very symbolical. I never thought about that. Our camera actually corrects the world. So, Jill,
So
continue,
if
please.
you
Mhm.
like if you hold up a text to a mirror, it'll be backwards and you can't read it. And so on the one hand, like if you're trying to fix something on your face, like I'm looking at myself on the screen and I'm like, wait, that's the wrong side of my face. Wait. And it shows you what's really there. But if it's inverted rather than the mirror image, then it's harder to orient and figure out what's where. But with a mirror image, if you show a text to the mirror, it's going to show you backwards. And so, some of us are skilled enough to read that, but not as well as regular print. Things are going to be backwards. So you have to remember when things seem backwards because it's not a mirror image, and when things are backwards because it is a mirror image. And it can be difficult to interpret that. So, just like any moment, we need clarity. Instead of trying to overanalyze it with our minds, we take a step back and a deep breath, and we sort of listen. What is this trying to tell me? And usually we don't get that answer right away, and it depends on the situation. But we just sort of set out that question, and then we have the open space for the answer to come. Like, what is this trying to tell me? And usually the most effective way is to ask that, have, some sort of little space where you're not completely feeling overwhelmed, but to do it and then sort of leave it there and like go off and do something else and sort of go on with your life with that sort of in the background. And then, you'll start getting insights as you're doing things like taking a shower, fixing dinner, that kind of thing. All of a sudden you'll be like, oh, that's what that means. And if it's something where like something really, really annoys you, and you're like, okay, so that means if this thing really, really annoys me, this is a really strong message I need to get. And probably this is something that I do myself. And the message is, you're really annoyed about doing this, stop doing it. But I don't see how I'm doing it. So, life, please show me how I am guilty of this thing. And in my experience with doing that, you usually get an answer pretty quick. And it's usually kind of a slap in the face. And you're like, oh my God, I didn't realize I was really that dumb. So be careful when you ask questions like that. So it's different in different situations. Sometimes there's this summer I had a lot of experience with the mirror of what I judge. And I'm like, oh, so if there's a mirror, if there's something that you judge that you just can't, that is going to appear in your environment as a mirror.
As an attack, actually.
Yeah, so you're feeling attacked and you're like,
Yeah.
why is that? You know, am I attacking myself? Am I, but your judgment of that
Some sort of
creates
discomfort.
it. Not necessarily you're doing that yourself, but your judgment of it in itself will create that, will give power to it and sort of make it attack you. So you interpret that as an attack and just really feel boxed in until you realize, oh, I'm judging that. And the judging is an emotional response. And if I let go of that emotional attachment that causes that judgment, then I can be neutral and the situation can neutralize.
It's actually emotional without perception. So it's kind of a separation happens. This is what Almin teaches us all the time, to heal the separation between masculine and feminine. It's actually between our logical part and our emotions. So it's emotional part which reacts is separated from the logical part, which needs to see our left brain hemisphere is responsible for our perceptional part. And that's why we always, when we experience something like we emotionally perceive it as an attack, we need to ask ourselves a question: what am I supposed to see? What I don't see? And then we turn on, activate our perceptual part. So it's very, very, very important for us to stay safe and secure, no matter what happens in the world, to keep this connection between our emotions and our perception. So, and then when emotions react, we immediately know and see what's really going on. This is the first step. And the next step, we see what to do with it. How to practically solve the issue. As we told before, tonight is the night of creative solutions.
Turning point.
Turning point. Solstice. Yes.
So another question, how do black magic attacks figure in? Can they only happen if we're judging or not seeing what we need to? Yes. So black magic is trying to manipulate the world, judging it, seeing it as not complete and perfect, and I have to change it rather than allowing it to change and manifest what it needs to. It's that judging of, you're not perfect. No, I need to create perfection. And it's not it's not taking responsibility. It's not, we're going to make some changes inside. It's judging the outer world, and I need to change the outer world. So if you change your own, if you realize that, oh, this is totally getting on my nerves, and in order to change that, I have to change this, that will work. And as soon as the illusion gets dissolved in you, it will dissolve without. And you won't have to kill the illusion with a knife, with mean, terrible ceremonies. So it's on the one hand so much easier, but if you have an ego, it's impossible. Like if the more ingrained into your ego identity, the less possible it is for you to admit that there's anything wrong with you. You sort of have this hate-love relationship of like, you're attacking yourself, but at the same time, you get really offended when people attack you. And there's no way that your ego is ever going to let you admit that you have anything to do with that. You're a victim. So in black magic, you can only be a victim. So if you feel like someone is attacking you, that attitude in itself is a feeling of victimization. You're feeling like a victim. So why am I feeling like a victim if I'm actually in control of my whole life? So that means I'm not. That means that there is some place that I'm abdicating control in my life so that I can feel like a victim. So my ego can claim that it's holier than everyone else. Does that make any sense? But that's the emotional, subconscious side of it. When you start thinking about the kinds of things, the logic that your ego functions under, it's just really sort of humorous. If you see it as a 2-year-old child and you're like, that was really funny. If you see it as like this tyrant who's trying to rule your life, it's not quite as funny. But yes, so Almine's biggest advice, and she even posted it right after, as I recall, certain black magic attacks. Like there were like attacks, and then the next post was like how to deal with this. But Almine's advice is you stay totally neutral, no emotional reaction. Instead of being, oh, I'm a victim, instead of, oh no, why is this black? Because we're judging black magic, right? Like we all know black magic's bad, right? So of course we're supposed to, no, you can't judge anything. One of my favorite images, like in Harry Potter, they have the cloak of invisibility. So it's like this black cloak, or maybe it's not black, maybe it's invisible. But anyway, so you put it on and then you're invisible. And in reality, there is such thing as a cloak of invisibility. It is when you have no emotional response, when you have no thought response, you're just completely still. You're invisible. And no one can direct any black magic attacks at you because they can't see you. So any beings of ill intent cannot see you if you have quieted your emotions and your thoughts. And if you have trouble with the controlling the emotions and thoughts thing, we gave you, the left brain logic, the breathing and the counting. Also, I find that the visual image of putting on a black cloak and hiding under it also helps. So it's like if you're trying to be really quiet and not make a noise, so the person in the room who's looking for you doesn't see you, you have to, not breathe, not sneeze, all of those things. You're sort of like not thinking, right? If you're really trying to like hold your breath and be really quiet so no one can hear you, you also don't have loud thoughts because you're trying to not be loud. So you just instinctively, if you're trying to hide, sort of emotions calm, thoughts calm, and then you really are invisible to beings of ill intent. And that's when you can like sneak in and, change something, and nobody will notice you, and there'll be no negative repercussions because you didn't think about it or have an emotional response to it. You're not trying to do something because you don't have an emotional attachment to the outcome. You're just doing it. And so that state of your cloak of invisibility is how you avoid black magic attacks. Are the light explosions a cloak? I will be honest, I don't do the light explosions. Sergey thinks they're probably just not necessary for me because I have a strong field.
Because everybody knows for his or for her own self which technique is necessary or not. Almine has I think more than over than thousands and thousands of different techniques, different practices, and we cannot do all of them all the time because it's too many. So we select those which resonate with us the most. So we can call it a clock, actually. If you decide to use light explosions as a cloak of invisibility, everything is a matter of intent. The power of intent. Intent is everything. So if you feel deep, strong resonance with the light explosions, like I know some of our light family do it every day, and sometimes several times a day. And this is absolutely wonderful if they feel such connection with this particular practice. But there are many other practices. Actually, neutrality, which Jill reminded us about, is one of the inner technologies which Almin taught in beginning of 2000s, the end of the 1990s. Actually, during that time, Almin almost, actually not almost, there was some period of time in Almin's life when she didn't use any external technique, practice, ceremonies, rituals. Actually, her well-known expression, well-known especially for those students who studied with her at those times. My path is a path of pure spirit. I don't need crutches. So she called crutches techniques, rituals, ceremonies. So this is one of the options, actually, to use only inner technologies without external tools. But if you feel, again, deep, strong resonance with the tools, use the tools. We are more than welcome to use the tools. Any tool which you feel like, well, resonant with you. We cannot say that you must do this and this practice or use this and that tool. We cannot decide it for you instead of you. Otherwise, we would take away your independence, your divinity, your free will. And this is actually, well, what else can we say? It's up to you. Everything is totally up to you. Just listen to your heart and listen to your resonance.
Mhm. So around there, I've seen all these posts where they're like, oh yes, you have to do light explosions every day, and there's all kinds of people asking questions of like, oh no, this is going wrong, that's going
Marla,
wrong.
yes, you are absolutely correct. It's all about intent.
And so then the answer to this like fear is like, well, do the light explosions, do the light
Mhm.
explosions. And so if that is something that helps you overcome this fear of, you know, calamitous
So,
disaster.
for example, intent. If I take this candle and I intend that this fire, this light of this candle, will neutralize all black magic around me. So this fire is now neutralizing all attempts to attack me by black magic. And then it will be so. So you can use any thing, uh, whatever is available. Of course, especially Almin's tools. But if we use even the best Almin's tools, but we don't intend anything, we don't actively, consciously engage the power of our intent, then the tool by itself is absolutely neutral, absolutely useless. You feel the tool with its contents, with its consciousness, like you breathe life by the power of your intent into the tool, and then a tool begins to work for you.
And intent is not a mind game. It's not,
Mhm.
oh, I have this emotional attachment, and I really want this to happen. So I'm just gonna like, I really want it to happen. So it's got to happen. It's not a mind thing where your mind decides something is sort of like hopes that it's going to happen.
Well, when you act like this, it's rather doubt than intent.
Mm-hmm.
If you fight like this, it must happen, you doubt. You don't intend, you doubt.
It's
But
not a
if you
superficial
doubt,
level. It's something that you feel coming
well,
from your core.
yeah.
And if you're trying from a superficial level to impose it, that is more like an assumption. And I don't know how many of you have gone through training where, like, no, we need good communication. Assume the word, the way the word is spelled, does it make an ass out of you and me? That's how the word assume is spelled. So don't assume anything.
Actually, I assume everybody watched my last video, the Three Rings of Magic, number 2, where I explain the difference between intent and imposing our will upon life. So if you didn't have a chance to watch it, you are more than welcome to watch it. It's in our almine.studio channel.
And so your intent, hold on, please don't interrupt me.
No, I'm just reading comments.
So with intent, you really feel it from coming from your core, and you can sort of feel a strength in it, and you know that, like, there's a faith there. You know it's going to work. And if you're sort of feeling superficial about that, and you're like, well, I'm just gonna, yeah, so it worked. Yeah. That's an assumption and a hope rather than an actual true power that empowers it. So I hope that's clear. And then I wanted to finish about the light
Yes.
the light explosions.
Mm-hmm.
It seems to me that there's sort of a climate of fear, and the light explosions are sort of placating that fear. Like, okay, so if you need something, if you can't just be calm and confident on your own, do the light explosions every day, and then at least you'll have, something where you can be like, okay, I did my light explosion, so I should be safe. And that way, if you haven't done your light explosions, then you maybe think you're gonna die. But at least if you're disciplined enough to do the light explosions every day, then you can maybe pacify those thoughts about, like, oh, I'm going to die because, like, no, I did the light explosions, I should be safe. And you can sort of, comfort yourself with that. Also, doing the light explosions or any kind of spiritual practice where it requires concentration, the ability to concentrate
Very good point, Jill.
is your power. So if you're a chaotic mess, but you're at least able to bring yourself together for like the 5 minutes or however long it takes to do the light explosion exercise, that starts teaching you a little bit of structure and grounding and concentration. And that in itself can be a huge blessing that, can bring more gifts in the future. But if you do the light explosions in an atmosphere of fear, oh, please don't kill me. Oh, please don't kill me. Oh, please don't kill me. White, jade, this other color. Then you will make yourself worse, and you will attract more black magic through the fear that you emanate.
Whatever we are afraid, it will happen to us.
So if in the
No
process
fear.
of doing the light explosions exercise, you're constantly feeding your fear and you're creating more emotions and having all these thoughts, then it's not going to have any sort of invisibility.
And imagine you fill those light explosions with the spirit of fear, and this tool, well, it begins to work against us. It begins to attack us by the power of fear, which we imbued this tool. Actually, very good point. We had someone in our light family who asked me a question. So, what's going on in my life? I put all kinds of power wheels and power sigils in all my walls from top to down, and all my floor, and I'm covered with power sigils. But things come worse in my life, not better. And then we discovered when we continued our interaction with this person that he was full of fear. He never dealt within himself with the fear factor, and well, this fear attracts all those things which attacked his life, and the wheels, the tools, the sigils are alchemical leveraging system. You know what it means? It means that they will amplify whatever is within our heart, whatever is within our consciousness. So if we are afraid of black magic attacks, they will amplify black magic attacks or whatever we are afraid of. Because almine tools have alchemical leveraging system. So they leverage everything, whatever we have within ourselves, in our inner space. So that's why it's very important for us to know how to use the tools. The tools have to go hand in hand with our inner self work. I actually stressed it in my last video. Self work is first, and tools they have a sort of, supplementary role, supporting role. So I think now we see everything in the proper perspective.
Mm-hmm. So if you do the light explosions
Mhm.
in an atmosphere of fear,
Mhm.
and you assume that they're just going to protect you because someone in the name of all means said that you have to do them every day, and they're supposed to help, that's not intent, and that's not a cloak of invisibility or any kind of protection. But if you do them in concentration and with the intent that that is going to help you, and that intent comes from deep within, you do the light explosions, you're breathing out air, and that place where you breathe out from really hard, that's where the intent comes from, then it will work. And if you decide that you've done the light explosions long enough and you don't have to continue with them anymore, then you can intend that once a week is enough, or that you have other techniques that you can do, or you can simply remember instead of doing the whole light explosion protocol. If you've gotten to the point where you can just activate it by remembering that state, then you can have a shortened version of it too. So everything depends on your life, whether you need to have a spiritual practice that you're doing for a certain amount of time every day, or whether that's taking too much time and you need to have a simplified, faster version of it, and exactly where you are in your process of growing with that.
We have some questions, some more questions.
So on that topic, Marika said, Almin once spoke of how affirmations can have the opposite result of what is desired. So it depends on the atmosphere, whether you're saying the words mechanically, but not feeling it. If you're assuming that just repeating the mechanical words
Or
is
not
going to help
believing,
you.
not believing
Yeah.
in them. Because some
Yeah.
people don't believe what they say in affirmations. They don't believe in affirmations, what they speak.
I'm going to be fine. I'm going to be fine. I'm going to be fine.
It's very important. Out of the overflow of our heart, our mouth speaks.
Mhm.
Then this is true affirmation. So the problem is not affirmation. Problem is that people really don't know what affirmation is.
Yeah.
They think that they just take some of the things somebody else written and repeat it over and over like a parrot, and this is affirmation. Somehow it should work for them. No, out of the overflow of the heart. If you really believe what you say, really believe, not imitate, but really believe, then whatever you say, be it unto you.
So
Other questions?
Jane has a question. She says, I received dark attacks from an adult daughter. I mostly manage a neutral mental response, but I feel unwell often, migraines. Is this because of the heart connection with her, the part that loves her? I welcome your help, particularly strong at present. So the reason that she's able to attack you is because there is an emotional attachment. If there wasn't an emotional attachment, it wouldn't affect you at all. Migraines in the head signify also something with your thoughts and your head response.
So
have
I
to
think
say about
it's,
that?
as I understand, it's ongoing thing for quite a while. Jane, what I suggest, I would like to talk with you privately, maybe within a couple of days. Actually, now I'm at the
He's on
winter.
vacation.
I'm on vacation, winter break at school, my work. So until the January 7th. So I'm more available for private consultation. Of course, it's for free of charge. I will be happy to talk with you. Are you in Australia, Jane?
Yes.
Okay, so we need to figure out time difference, and I think we need to elaborate on that. So maybe Monday, Tuesday next week. Please let me know what time would be the best for you, and I will adjust my schedule, and we will talk. And I need your phone number or Telegram ID if we can speak on using Telegram. Okay, so you can contact me privately on Telegram, and we will schedule our meeting. In Perth. Okay. So please, Jane, talk to me. Text me to my Telegram. Do you know my Telegram ID? Yes, you're on Telegram. I think we connect. We talked. We texted each other Telegram before. If you don't know my Telegram ID, it's my phone number. You can just in case.
Why don't you email?
Or
We have
email.
her email.
We have. Okay, good, good. If we have your email, this solves the issue.
Yes.
So we will be in touch.
Yes. I also wanted to say regarding family members, especially if you're like a parent with a child, there's a sense of responsibility that sort of doesn't go away. Like, my mom always says, "Oh, you'll always be my baby," even though I'm bigger than she is. And so like you have an adult daughter and they are able to manipulate you because you still feel responsible for
She's
them.
adult daughter. Adult daughter. Yeah, yeah.
And so the sense of responsibility for somebody else creates an emotional attachment and a certain sense of judgment because you're afraid of what people will think of you because of how you raised them. You're responsible for their behavior regardless of what they do. There's sort of a little bit of a stickiness there in terms of emotion. And I currently live with my parents because they're aging and have some issues. And so we sort of provide in-home, care, computer help. I'm usually able to figure out their computers, if not my own computers, which is fortunate for them. then, so we have this sort of ongoing issue of parent-child relations. So my parents continue to have this like, oh no, what did Jill do? We have to like, oh, what are our friends going to think? She's a little too crazy. And I also have the issue of, okay, so my parents are doing unwise things and this is, it's not like they're a small child and they're going to learn and, everything's going to get better and they, can recover quickly because they're young and healthy. They're, any unwise decision could have a huge far-reaching effect on their lives. And it's hard to tell somebody like, you're making an unwise decision. You really need to not do that. If they think that they're your parent and they know better than you. And so there's some stickiness there where I feel responsibility for them. They feel responsibility for me. And so, we're constantly trying to like change each other. So that's one possible door where there can be an emotional attachment. It's very dark and abusive.
Yeah.
Took away my mother's independence and then her money.
Yeah, we
So
will
this was a relationship with her grandmother, I'm assuming.
talk about this in details. Yeah. I think it needs more detailed
Yeah, I think
attention.
this needs
Yeah.
more.
And I will be happy to help you, Jane. So, any other questions?
So
If no questions,
my
then
water's almost gone and I'm really thirsty.
we
So I'm
will
going to pour.
transition to the runes then.
Yes. Do you want to
Okay,
go ahead and
yeah,
open the Anutiama site?
of course, yeah.
I'll be
So
right
we are
back.
going to use Anutiama site. It's highly recommended. I think everyone using it, right? Just a moment, I will do my technical being attacked by my computer. Sometimes it takes time to figure out. Yeah, but so it's a very, very, very convenient system which Anita and Dave from Holland created. Anutiama.net. A RUNES app. Actually, they call it they call it by different name. I don't remember. It's not just app. It's all spreads are there. Actually, not only runes, but also Kivesta, Hakulit. All divination tools are included in this great system. Dave is computer man, programmer. He's one of the best in Europe. Created this masterpiece. So, Jill, Anutiama is open. We need to share screen. Mhm. Jill is more, of course, Jill is more savvy in all this.
I have to help Sergey with his computer problems
Yeah.
too. Okay, sure. Alrighty, this is it.
Um,
Did you open the
yeah,
basic spread?
we are screen sharing. Yeah.
All right.
Yes, I opened basic spread.
Okay.
So
we
Jill,
decided
please.
for today, for it to not be too overwhelming and long, we would do a fairly simple spread. And also to have minimal, what do you call it, limitation in terms of the guidance that we get. And there's lots of spreads on here for very specific sort of things like how to deal with all the chaos in the world and not lose your inner sanctum, how to identify areas and what's going on in the world, what I need to change within in order to help that. And all these things seemed very helpful. And I was like, how are we going to pick between like 20 different options? And we decided that probably since it's one spread for the whole year, we would do well to have it be sort of generic instead of having a very specific intent with it. So more open-ended. So we have chosen the basic spread, and this involves 4 cards from the first 4 decks. I wonder if we can make this bigger. Alrighty, so actually I should read the information here. So if you're not familiar with this website, anutiama.net, you can sign up with a free account and do 1 spread per day. You also get a rune of the day, a Kivesta card of the day, and a Divinity Quest card of the day. And then you can do 1 spread if you have a free account. If you are going to be doing this for personal consultations and you need to be doing more than 1 spread per day, then you will need to open a paid account and you can do online rune consultations where you show everyone their runes, and it's a convenient way to do online consultations. So spread information. The cards represent past, present, future, and guidance. So that's each of the 4 cards. As there is, so each card represents one of those 4, is what I meant. As there's only the present moment unfolding, this spread can help to dissolve the stories of the past that they may yield. Dissolve the stories of the past that they may yield inspiration and insight, and open to future as the whispered potentials that may be accessed for most beneficial outcomes. So it helps us find wisdom in less poetic language. By revealing the future that is most likely, you can adjust within to open to higher potentials. The present card can help with meeting whatever challenge is before you most effectively, and the guidance step gives clarity on your response to life or the next step. So we have a little bit of everything, you know, what we need to move on from our past, how this is likely to develop in the future, what we can do now to deal with it effectively now. So sort of all aspects in a more generic sense. If you need further help in interpreting the rune of a certain field, you might consider doing a rune spread for guidance on that particular field with the intention for further clarity. And so then the steps for the basic spread, which we'll do together: envision the issue you desire clarity on within your mind. Before selecting each rune, take a moment to tune into the field's qualities, connect to its angel gods, and with due reverence, call forth one who will be most effective in assisting you. To review the qualities of the fields and the strong suits of their runes, click the qualities of the fields and strong suits of the runes. There's a lot of things that they reference on here that I was not able to find, so I'm not sure if that information
So it's
is
not
this or not.
necessarily for the spread.
Um,
We just concentrate on the cards.
Yeah, so they do have a lot of tools on here that you can
Supplementary
supplement
tools.
and go deeper with various things. Or you can just sort of like concentrate just on the actual runes in the spread. Select a rune for each field, interpret through the lens of past, present, future guidance, according to the instructions, basically. Positive runes are right side up and stand for aspects you already have embodied and are guided to express to lead to success in the situation of focus. So if it's right side up, it says this is a quality that is familiar to you, but this is what you need to use in this particular situation. If the rune is upside down, that indicates that it's not something that you've activated yet. And so it will take a little bit more time and effort to connect with that quality. And it could be a quality you spend a lot of time working on, and then all of a sudden it ends up upside down in a particular spread. And that means that in that particular situation, you haven't activated it. And so it's not just something that you are familiar with and you need to employ, it's something that you need to really activate in this particular situation, even if you may have activated it in other areas of your life. Select Show Spread and you will see the runes on the power wheel and have access to an angel elixir while you process. So there's if we hit play here, the angel elixir will start playing, but we're concerned about sound quality if we turn background music on. So first, we're just gonna tune in. Our question for this rune spread is about the upcoming year. So there's a lot of changes that are happening right now.
Destructuring.
A lot of destructuring, restructuring.
Yeah. Turmoils.
And if we realize that
Wars.
things are changing for the better, and this is a wonderful time for us to sort of pivot, you know, have a grounding where things can turn around us and to stay centered, then things can change gracefully, and we'll be amazed at how amazing and wonderful everything turned out to be. If we stay in our emotions and can't see straight, then we won't be able to make the necessary adjustments. And if we are in fear, then we'll attract what we fear instead of manifesting something beautiful. And so our question, our intent for this rune spread is how to make the current changes and that are going to affect this whole next year, how to make them as graceful as possible and to see them in clarity and instantly know how to adjust what we need to do in order to align with that fully and make these changes graceful for the whole world. So the first card is from the first rune deck, which is the Field of Shamanism and the physical world. And this is the card of the past, which is transformation, what we're supposed to shed and get lessons, some maybe unfinished business from the past that we need to get insights from in order to let go of something. And there we go. Restoring white magic, Pelehur. And we can tune into the image. And the name of the angel god that is associated with this rune is Pelehur. And we can just sense that being, or whatever you want to call it, and ask for assistance in restoring white magic. So that says, from the past, if we have to restore it, it means that white magic has been lost. We have sunk into fear and all kinds of other manifestations of black magic, and it is time to restore white magic. And just spend some time feeling that quality of white magic. What does white magic feel like in your life? What is it that we have sunk into fear and judgment about? And do we realize that those things are either not worthy of judgment, or that the judgment clouds our vision and the judgment needs to go regardless? Are we in a place where we are ready to relax and trust life and allow white magic to happen instead of trying to force things? And just spend some time breathing and feeling that white magic. It seems that white magic goes well with Christmas. We don't have any snow right now, and in Australia they don't have any snow, but try to imagine, the sense of Christmas and so like, waving a magic wand and like sparkles and, snow falling is white magic. So just allow your inner eye to see some sparkles, the stars shining in the sky, also twinkly white magic. The moon shining on the freshly fallen snow. And cute little wild animals hiding in the snow, darting about, leaving footprints. You know that all is well. And there's this sort of twinkle, a twinkle in your eyes when you're laughing. Allow yourself to just have that twinkle in your eye. And feel that twinkling of the whole world. Everything's twinkling. Everything that seemed dark before is now twinkling. It doesn't have to be twinkling in the sunlight. It can be twinkling in the moonlight. It doesn't take a very big shift of perception to change the dark into moonlight. The sun comes out from behind a cloud, and all of a sudden we have light. It's not blinding light, it's twinkling light. And that is how white magic works. It's still magic, it's still secret, and it happens in the deep recesses of your subconscious, and it's hard to explain and understand. The kind of thing that happens at night, but it's not a dark, ominous night. It's a bright, twinkling night. Imagine the star that symbolizes the birth of something new, the birth of a new kingdom. But just like the solstice, it's hardly noticeable at first. A subtle shift. But the further you get away from the starting point, the more dramatic you will notice in how different a place than you are than the original vector. But it starts with just one simple little shift. A baby is born and it seems so vulnerable and so insignificant. And yet it is the start of a new kingdom. Restoring white magic. And then the next one, oh, and it says right here, the present. The challenge or that which pertains to the question before you, the card of transmutation. This is the second field, the field of white magic. It seems odd that we had restoring white magic in the first field, and then the second field is white magic, but it's a good segue. So now we're in the field of white magic because we've restored it. And so our card is Courageous Trailblazer. When we look at the image, we repeat the name of the angel god Sihut Ater. And we ask for help in embodying this quality fully. Courageous Trailblazer. So we talked about how we have the responsibility of being the sacred government. We are the ones that have to take responsibility and say the buck stops here. I will lead. I will be an example for everyone else to follow. We can't just sit around in the shadows waiting for somebody else to do something because we have determined everyone else is incompetent. With no judgment, just, so I really do have to do it myself. And we have the confidence. If we're constantly looking for attacks and we're expecting to be attacked, we'll talk ourselves out of anything. Oh, if I do this, so-and-so will say that. If I do this, so-and-so will say that. If I do this, and we're just so sick of having people come and shut us down that we just, well, I just won't even do it to start with because I don't want to be shut down again. And so then we just sit and do nothing and watch the world decay. But if we change our perspective and we stop allowing these people to rule our world, and we are the courageous trailblazer, and we focus on the path in front of us that is exciting and the excitement of our new path that we're on. And we don't pay attention to these people that are trying to shut us down because they're afraid. We don't allow their fear to touch us. We stop empathizing with them instead of, oh, that is really scary. And I'm sorry that it's so threatening to you. Instead of perceiving it as a threat, we don't ignore them and we don't judge them. We just focus on the excitement of the trail. And we realize that the person is afraid of being the trailblazer. And they are putting themselves in our position and telling us, oh, I wouldn't want to be a trailblazer. Why should you be a trailblazer? And so they're criticizing us because, especially if it's a loved one, they're afraid for us. They're, empathizing with us and putting themselves in the position of, oh, I wouldn't want to do that. And we just need to remember that as soon as we show them that it's possible, they'll follow. We just focus on our own path. And we focus on being courageous instead of fearful. Anything that's fearful, we don't judge. We just turn on our neutral reaction, our cloak of invisibility. And we just march on ahead, knowing that nobody has to see us. Nobody has to attack us because they probably can't see us. And that courage serves as our cloak of invisibility. Instead of thinking all kinds of thoughts of self-doubt and fear, we just courageously move forward. And we do what needs to be done. And we know that we're protected by that white magic of our first card. It's the beautiful, wonderful, twinkly white magic world that beckons us. And we set out across the fresh snow as a trailblazer. We don't worry that it's cold and wet and we're going to get our feet wet and it's going to be miserable. We're excited about the beauty that is beckoning us. And it's so exciting that we don't notice it's chilly. The refreshing air feels good. Courageous trailblazer. The next card is the future, the predicted outcome most likely to happen, and the card of transfiguration. This is the third field, which is the field of healing through oneness. Or just the field of healing. This is the one that has the biggest explanation. Shedding worldviews. And that's exactly, in a nutshell, what this whole world transformation, restructuring, destructuring is all about. It's about worldviews that are no longer valid and are being destructured. And for the people that identify with their worldview, that feels like death, and it's very scary. So we look at the picture, the image, Selhasunet. We ask for help embodying this quality. A radical departure from your normal way of seeing the world is required for opportunities in this situation to be maximized. Great truthfulness is required with yourself. So if we expect other people in the world around us to be able to shed their worldview and radically change their perception, we have to be able to do that as the trailblazer. If we're so content in our little world that we're so used to seeing as however we see it, and we are these holy beings that have done so much work that we don't need to do any more work, the world around us needs to change, then we're fairly powerless and there is no magic. But if we are able, if we're flexible and we are able to see things differently, and not just slightly differently, but if we can have a radical departure from our normal way of seeing the world, And we can stay calm and centered with that radical departure, not feel like our world is falling apart and we're totally overwhelmed and drowning. If we're able to stay grounded and calm while having a radical departure from our normal way of seeing the world, then we will blaze that trail and white magic will magically be restored. But it's in wanting to feel safe, wanting to escape, wanting to hang on to our identity that we block all of that, that we create problems instead of magical solutions, that we remain stuck instead of creating a trail. And great truthfulness is required in order for us to recognize these areas and see where it is that we can have a departure from our worldview. Anytime we see people around us freaking out, concerned about something, overwhelmed, what is it that I can see differently to help in this situation of overwhelm? What can I see differently about these people that are feeling overwhelmed? How can I see them differently? How can I see their problems differently rather than feeling annoyed by them and their stuckness and judging them? How can I see them differently? And then instead of assuming that you're right and assuming, we already talked about assuming, always ask yourself, is that real? Is that really true? And always be prepared to get an answer that you didn't want. That's what the radical departure from your normal way of seeing the world is it's the readiness to receive a new answer and to receive information that you were wrong. And it doesn't have to feel like, oh, wrong. It's just time to change. And the old answer is now wrong, although quite possibly it was right this whole time. Truthfulness is the opposite of ego. Ego is an artificial construct that we create in order to be able to interact with the world, in order to be able to function as a limited being. But everything about our ego is artificial. And so great truthfulness requires letting go of your ego, that identity that you've created for yourself. When you have things that are preferences, you have things that have shaped your experience so far in life, but any emotional attachments block truthfulness. They block clarity. And you have to release any emotional attachments to your ego and to aspects of your identity in order to see clearly and know where you need to change your perspective. So this is a very difficult card because it requires seeing what you can't see. Things that you need to change are generally your blind spot. And the reason it's called a blind spot is because you can't see it. So how do you see something that you can't see? This is sort of like the traditional Russian fairy tale where you're instructed to go, I don't know where, and bring me, I don't know what. So look into your blind spot where you can't see anything and find what's there and fix it. Wait, I can't see it.
Fix your perception.
But how do you fix your perception if you don't know what's wrong with it? And so any sort of riddle causes you to stop and think, but really stop and ponder.
fix the perception of your perception.
Of your perception.
We'll think about it afterwards.
So this riddle brings you out of your left brain and makes you ponder with deeper parts of your being. And in that silence where you're listening in between your thoughts and in between your emotions, you can get answers. And there's a certain discipline in waiting. We're used to having a conversation where there's a verbal question and then an immediate verbal answer. And a lot of times in life, you don't get that immediate information, and it's not verbal. And mind is so used to controlling our lives and trying to save us and trying to micro-control everything. And it's not our mind that saves us. And mind is not going to get this seeing into our blind spot. Mind can help interpret some of the information that will come to figure out exactly how to implement that in life. But it takes intuition, a more right-brained approach. Turning the other cheek, if you like that interpretation. Sort of waiting in silence, looking into your soul. It's like if you're waiting, you're looking for someone and you keep calling, you know, so-and-so, so-and-so, and then you keep listening into the silence. Do you hear their voice? Are they there? And just that sense of listening. You're listening and you're waiting for the answer. And then at some point, you'll always get that answer. It may not be something that your mind can latch onto and be sure of in the way that mind likes to be. Sometimes it's just a feeling. And if your normal way of seeing the world is mind and labels, and trying to get away from that into a more sense of being comfortable with the unknown, that can be a radical departure. And just spending time in that space where your mind is not in control. And you have the freedom and the space to just be. That's where you can start seeing things, getting answers. But only if you get rid of mind's expectations of what those answers are supposed to be like. Mostly it's just becoming comfortable with that sense of unknowing. You may feel inferior because you try and get answers from your subconscious and you can't hear them and you can't feel them. And that is exactly what the answer is. Becoming comfortable with that state of not knowing, of not being able to explain what your insight was. Not feeling like you have to prove something to someone or answer somebody. You just are. And when you spend some time in this state, you start to realize how much so many people in the world are so attached to mind and its definitions and its, mind and ego are almost synonymous. And all of the games that ego plays and all of the mind games that exist and all the ways your mind tries to trick you instead of helping you. You think your mind is logical, and there's like no logic there. And that's where great truthfulness is required, to actually see yourself the way you are rather than the way your mind wants you to see it. And the more you're able to just be in this state where you can just see clearly, other people realize that their limited worldviews are pathetic and not helpful, and they can start to see the world more clearly and more openly instead of having such a limited, panicked view about it, instead of allowing their ego to play so many games with them. They can realize that it's life is really so simple and straightforward. And our last card is the guidance. Clarity for how to proceed with your actions and responses, the card of transcendence. Come here. Okay. This is called Ghosts from the Past. This is the fourth field, which is the field of mysticism. If you're going by chakras, it's the heart chakra, where your inner and your outer worlds combine. So, I mean, this is a definition of white magic, but it's also mysticism, where your inner world affects your outer world. Do not relive past patterns that no longer serve. If it was upside down, it would mean you're being drawn to something that you should let go. But the message here is just do not relive past patterns that no longer serve. So, shedding worldviews that no longer work. They almost say the same thing, ghosts from the past. Things that we're trying to keep living from our past that have already become obsolete, and we need to let go instead of identifying with them and trying to perpetuate them. We can look at the image, Nen Sarabruk, and ask for help in embodying this quality. How to identify which worldviews need to be changed and which ghosts from the past need to be let go. How do you feel if something is no longer serving or if it is still valuable? It's an intuitive sense that if your mind comes along and says, oh, that's probably old, we need to get rid of that, then sometimes you get rid of something and you really miss it. Something just isn't right in life. And you realize that there was something necessary there, that it wasn't a thing that no longer served. It was something that your mind decided, should probably was old. If it's something that still serves you, then instead of having an identification, ego identification with it, an emotional attachment that creates blockages in life. And you can feel the stickiness of an emotional attachment where you're not ready to let go of something. And if you're not ready to let go of it, then cutting it off ahead of time can be traumatic. So you want to work through, why am I still attached to this? And sometimes there's issues where you need to let go of an aspect of a relationship, but not the whole relationship. For example, the Old Testament or Muslim story of Isaac having to sacrifice his son. the reason that God told Isaac that he was supposed to sacrifice Abraham was
Abraham.
sorry, Abraham. So Abraham had two sons. One was Ishmael, who was the ancestor of the Muslims, and Isaac, who was the ancestor of the Jews. And so they have slightly different versions, but in both stories, Abraham was supposed to sacrifice his son, and then his son ended up being alive. And the message there was that Abraham started being emotionally attached to the son rather than having a healthy relationship. And so the message was, you have to sacrifice your son, because if you're ready to give him up, you can't have an emotional attachment. And so in the Old Testament version, he goes up on the mountain, and as soon as he has the intent of sacrificing his son, he's got the knife raised, that's when the angel appears to him and says, no, don't do it. There's a ram in the bushes, sacrifice the ram. And so son remains alive, but the relationship was fixed. In the Muslim version, from what I understand, he actually sacrificed his son, and as soon as the knife went into him, he looked and there was a resurrected. The knife was in a ram instead of in his son, and his son was alive and on the side. So basically, the subtle nuances are different, but the intent of the story is that Abraham's intent to sacrifice his son, as in to his ability to give up the emotional attachment, meant that, ironically, his son could be alive. When we're attached to something, we think that we have to hold on to it and that we're blessing it and helping it when we're really suffocating it. And in order for us to really help the thing that we're attached to and trying to help, we need to actually let go. And that's when the miracles start. But if we don't have the faith, if we think that it's going to either die or run away and we won't have it anymore, and we want to have this in our lives, that's the black magic manipulation of like, no, I have to force this to happen. And that's what emotional attachments are based on, of there's a lack of fear, and that's why you're gripping this thing. And if you're able to let go of it, then the miracle happens and all of your relationships are in perfect harmony. And so sometimes we feel like we're not ready to let go of something. And the problem is that we're trying to, let's say, kill our child in, figurative sense, when God does not condone child sacrifice. He doesn't want us to kill anybody. He wants us to correct things. And so sometimes we have almost the right message, but we're doing it in a wrong way. And we're like, oh, but I'm not ready to kill my child because, murder is wrong. And we don't realize that we just need to let go. We need to let go of one aspect. And it's not that we need to totally cut off all communication. It's an internal shift rather than an external conflict. And once we get to the specific nuance of what specific past patterns no longer serve and how to let go of them, all of a sudden everything is right. So in our effort to change the course of the world and its ability to deal with change, ghosts from the past are what will derail us because they're tying us to the past. There was an interesting, what do you call it, presentation on YouTube that I heard recently. And it was sort of like one of the things that one of our people posted on Telegram on our Russian group, and I was sort of like, I should see what she's actually. It was on the one hand I was sort of interested, and on the other hand I also wanted to check what are people posting on our Telegram channel, because it was this lady who was, claiming in a very sort of authoritarian voice, now remember people, I hear angels. And I was like, lady, get over yourself. But she actually had an interesting message. It was, asking about which directions different countries are going in, in the eyes of the angels. But she had some, and I don't know about how, her presentation style and all that, but she actually had some interesting insights. And one of them was, she asked, so which direction is Ukraine going? And it said that they're sort of unified as a government, not necessarily as a people, but as a government. And they're all going in the direction, they have the little arrows pointing down. And what does that mean? They're going back to their roots, which sounds so poetically good, like connecting back to our roots. But she said, so then she like asked the angels, and they said, well, no, that's actually a very harmful path, because if you have a tree that's growing, your tree does not grow towards its roots. It has roots and it's growing up from them. And so the returning to your roots, at least in this context, is going back to the past. It's, attachments to all of your ghosts from the past rather than moving into the future. And it's a very harmful path. So, right, I thought that was an interesting analogy of growing back to your roots, even though it could sound good depending on the context, but that can just be an attachment to your ghost from the past and a complete distortion of the way you're supposed to be growing. So we have these 4: restoring white magic, courageous trailblazer, shedding worldviews, and ghost from the past. And then there was something about, we can see it on the power wheel. I'm not seeing the power wheel.
Подожди, тут надо...
Oh.
Show material нажать.
Okay. Show material.
Нет.
No. So maybe there is no power sigil with this particular one.
Yeah.
There are a lot of, especially the 8th deck spreads have a power wheel that this will show you the image of the power wheel and then your little cards on it as an image. And maybe that's not for
there's
this.
no power wheel.
Yeah.
Not for this particular spread.
So here we are. These cards. Usually I like to make a screenshot. So I will do that. So I do each one individually so that we can work with them. Then we can post these.
Ты не сделала?
Сделаем. Вот он. Number 3. And number 4. All right. So then we can post those and people can continue working with them. Any questions? Any comments?
Кроме чат.
No, nothing yet.
So if you have any questions about the spread, about the meaning of the cards, maybe.
I had no idea what to expect, but this far exceeded what I didn't know to expect. Wonderful.
The same.
Yes. Perfect runes for destructuring. And answering questions about destructuring and restructuring.
Destructuring ghosts of the past.
Yes. Destructuring, ghosts of the past, and limiting worldviews or past worldviews.
So why do we need them?
And
Let them be destructured.
instead of them, we have restored white magic and courageous trailblazing.
Or destructuring the eggshell.
Finally.
Is it good destructuring?
If you want to be a chick.
Do we want to live?
Yes.
Otherwise, if the eggshell is not destructured, you know what happens.
Interesting how the rune for the past was restored white magic. And the rune for the future is past worldviews. So we've got sort of like the past in the future and the future in the past.
So we restore white magic and then we'll trailblaze by the power of the restored white magic.
Which will destructure old worldviews and ghosts of the past.
Yeah. And we left behind the ghosts of the past, including black magic. That's why we did this series, Black Magic Exposed.
And if we see the destructuring as white magic rather than as an attack, all of a sudden we have a completely different worldview.
White magic destroys the eggshell or neutralizes the ghosts of the past. And we trailblaze into the future by the power of our intent. And we create our own life and we create our own future. So now we have alchemical leveraging system at our disposal, those 4 runes, and we use this alchemical leveraging system to create our future by the power of your mind, and the power of your emotions, your feelings. Mind coupled with your feelings, conscious thinking, conscious feeling, you create your life, you create your future. And this is hope. Actually, somebody told me, I want to have some hope. Give me some hope. But we need to know what hope is. Hope is. Almine says in the book, Life of Miracles, the substance of the things hoped for. Some people call it quantum field, scientific community. We call it field of the infinite potential, infinite void, emptiness. We are talking about the same God, the infinite. We are talking about the same. And this is the substance. And the substance by itself doesn't help until we engage it. How do we engage it? We consciously think and feel and envision. We create the life we desire to have. And I'm actually going to clarify this day after tomorrow. I'm going to record the new video from Three Rings of Magic series, where I'm going to clarify the issue of my will or God's will, infinite's will. Is it infinite's will or my will? Is it my ego, my desire, whether it comes from my ego self or God self? So we are going to clarify that. I'm not going to talk about that now, but we are going to clarify it in this video. So that, first of all, if we do have desires, we don't need to be shy about it. We don't need to be ashamed of it, because everybody has desires according to their level of evolution, their level of consciousness. If some people want a lot of money, they want to be the richest people in the world, they absolutely have a right to want whatever they want. because this is their level of consciousness. And they, why do they need to imitate or copy the level of consciousness of some, well, let's say, great masters which dissociated, no longer attached with material goods and things like that. By the way, they can have even more than all the the richest billionaires in the world. We don't need to be billionaires in order to be rich, in order to live in abundance. Because, well, we don't need $1 billion right here and right now, right? But we can manifest. We have infinite potential. We have substance of the things hoped for to manifest whatever we need to have right here and right now out of this substance. So this substance is within you, and it contains infinity of resources, infinity of possibilities in potential. But you can extract out of this potential whatever you need right here and right now, and whatever we'll need for the upcoming year. This is how we create our life. And this gives us hope, because this is the substance of the things hoped for. So whatever we hope, whatever we desire, we engage this substance by the power of our conscious intent. And the conscious intent is that, be it as I intend. You know for sure that whatever you think, whatever you speak, the power of the spoken word, the power of thought, the power of your intent, the power of your emotion, the power of your feeling will manifest whatever you think and feel about. And this is the law of physics. This is already science. It's already proven by the science, quantum physics, that the world works like this. So, and we have only two options: whether we want to create our own life by ourselves, or we let others to create a life for us instead of us, according to their image and likeness. I don't think that we will choose the second option, because, well, we are masters of our own life and sacred government of the earth. So we rule, we govern, and we create. So whatever we think and feel, whatever we want to create, whatever new world we want to create, it will be so accordingly. So I am not going to continue. We will talk a lot about it in our videos. So this upcoming video and many more videos, so they will address some of your questions, and you can actually keep asking your questions. Contact me via Telegram or email, and I'll be more than happy to address your questions in our upcoming videos.
Thank you so much for joining us, and
Yeah.
happy solstice, happy Merry Christmas coming up, Happy New Year, Happy Kwanzaa, Happy Hanukkah, it starts on Christmas.
Happy
the night
you,
of Christmas.
happy you, happy you. I wish you happy you. Always be happy, no matter what special date, or like Jill already.
It's nice to have like an excuse to be happy. Sometimes I like to be like,
address-
Happy Thursday.
You already addressed that. You already mentioned that in your somewhere in Telegram, that sometimes we attach our happiness to special dates,
Oh, that was
special seasons,
Ella's last webinar.
or Ella's last webinar. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Sometimes I just like to say Happy Thursday. It's Thursday, so Happy Thursday.
happy timelessness.
Yes. Or today's Friday, so Happy Friday.
Yeah.
Whatever day it is.
Happy present moment. So
just kidding, it's Saturday for some of you. Yes.
Yeah,
happy Saturday, whatever day it is. And
for including for Russia. Yeah.
In Russia, they have an expression because there's like 9 time zones instead
Ah,
of on the morning news, which
Yeah,
is
very
some
practical,
places
yes.
in Russia is at in the evening. Instead of saying good morning or good evening, they say hello, happy time of day.
Good time of the day.
Yeah.
Okay. We are going to post the recording very soon, and we keep in touch.
Yes.
Our Telegram groups or privately, just let us know if you need any assistance, if you have any questions. We are always here for you.
Thank you for your feedback in the chat, and I like this happy everything, merry everything.
Yeah.
So thank you so much.
Thank you.
We love you.